It's call her Floradora, but it's Flora who is the Brazilian lead from the World Climate Foundation, and she is going to introduce her esteemed panelists, and I hand it over to you, Flora. Let's give her a Brazilian hand of applause. Louder, 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 louder.
Olá, boa tarde a todos.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to moderate this closing plenary. But just in the beginning, I want to say that we have the most powerful keynotes to end the session. So stay here because we have She Bastide, which is the youth inspiring leader on climate action, climate activist. She's really amazing. You cannot miss her. And we have Ursula Vidal, the Secretary of Culture of Belém, who did a very amazing work for COP30 and was a very, very good partner for all the work that we are doing here. So to start our session, I want to invite my dearest co-panelists here. So please, John Mulligan, Imane, Kabbaj, Gavan, McFadzean, and Fabiola Zerbini, please join me on stage. Thank you. All good? Okay. So we are talking about the after COP, right? So after Belém. So we came in a long journey from all year of engagement. I want to know how this was internationally, but in Brazil we have so many pre-COP events all the year that I'm almost breathing better now that we are here at COP. The time arrived. But we cannot forget that what's coming after is what's most important. And including Brazil presidency is just starting now. So we cannot forget, even if we deserve some weeks of rest after COP. So first, I would like to open the floor for each one of you to introduce yourselves and bring like a first message of how is being this COP for you and what's your work for. So,
I can start
Fabiola, please.
Hey. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the organizers. No, such a big responsibility. Make the closing panel of such an important event. So many panelists and topics. So thank you. Well, I think first of all, for us Brazilians, there's no other way to express. We are very proud of what we are realizing here. We know there are some problems, we know there are some issues, but in the end, no, we are very proud to welcome all of you, to Belém, to Pará, to the Amazon, to Brazil. Mainly for, I think, two reasons. One is as much close to the reality as we could be to discuss about that reality and take decisions about that reality better. So it means a lot. No, it's not just a detail, it means a lot. And secondly is because due to that, we were able to receive the major number of IPOCs, indigenous peoples, local communities, familiar agricultors. We had never seen such big participation, not in terms of amount of quantity, but also in terms of how empowered they are, and better, how collectively speaking, the solution is us, the answer is us. So I think this is for me the highest or the most important experience that I'm living alongside all the others, like opportunities to really take decisions. And I will speak a little bit more about that now. It's a very crucial moment for all of us. So it's a huge responsibility for all of us to be here.
And just to...
Oh yeah, I'm Fabiola from Conexsus.
Great,
Sorry.
Great.
Conexsus is an NGO based in Brazil, but we also work in the Pan-Amazon. in 6 other countries. We are very aimed to foster the social bioeconomy. Social bioeconomy recognized it as how to really enforce the economic governance for community-led territories by strengthening capacity for agroforestry, agro-extractivists, agroecological system productions. So, yeah.
And just passing through these two guests in the center, I want to wrap up the vision of finance and capital mobilization, because we came from Brazil, we came from Baku, where the COP was really focused on financing, and this was like the main topic on the discussions. And we are heading to COP31, maybe in Australia. Gavan, you need to say to us how this will happen. But I want to say that we, for the past decade, on the after Paris Agreement, we were really talking about the politics of COPs and how structure this multilateralism and these negotiations, and how we make commitments, how we make the NDCs happen and being implemented and now COP30 presidency said we are going to the economics of COP. So you two, please also bring to me a little bit of this flavor of what's coming in terms of the economical setup of the COP agendas.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Imane. I head the Sustainable Investment Specialist team at Carmignac Gestion. So Carmignac is a French independent investment manager. We manage about 40 billion euros that are predominantly invested in the publicly listed market. So the publicly listed markets here are defined as equity market or stock or listed debt, either from a corporate or a sovereign perspective. So we were one of the first firms in France at the beginning of the 90s to have a big exposure in emerging markets. It's still one of our key core strategies, and we have a strong bias towards LATAM and then also Brazil. So we are quite large holders of Brazilian sovereign debt, corporate debt as well, and then exposure to Brazilian and LATAM companies. So I'm hoping to bring in that element of financing, because this is what we are doing. So for us, it was rather obvious and to be here in Brazil, considering our exposure, but also considering the themes that are being tackled here at Belém, which are financing. There is a big push on biodiversity as well. And then for us, there is no conversation about climate that is complete without the talking about biodiversity. And what better place to talk about it than here at the heart of the Amazon. So today is the first day of what they call the Finance COP. So it's today and tomorrow. There have been some very interesting conversation. From my perspective, I'm glad to see that there are more and more conversations about financing. I still think we're at the beginning of the stage, and they are at the moment solely focused on the private market side, the infrastructure and the MDBs, which are a very, very important part of the ecosystem. But the public markets are still left out of this equation. I mean, I'm sure it's not done on purpose, but we're still very much left out of it. And the reason why the public markets are so important, especially when we talk about this conversation of financing, is that there has been a report that was published by Bloomberg, and then they said that the amount of financing that has been raised in the listed fixed income market, which is all the green bonds, blue bonds, transition bonds, sustainable bonds, sustainability-linked bonds altogether, was 10 times higher than whatever climate financing solution was on the entire stock market and the entire private market. So I repeat it again, it's 10 times more. So any solutions about financing need to be included in it. But for whatever reason, we're still at the very beginning of the stage.
And Gavan, you also have this important work of advocacy and mobilization. And we see that COP is not something that happened just inside the rooms of negotiations, but all the work that is happening, this event, all the conversations, how we meet people on the corridors, how we manifestate our requests to be implemented tell me about it and your work as well. Explain to me.
Yeah, so the Australian Conservation Foundation, for those who don't know us, is Australia's largest and most established conservation NGO. We're 60 years old. We believe that civil society doesn't play a peripheral role in COP. It has to be about community. It has to be about First Nations people and those most challenged by the impacts of climate change. And that's why we're so excited with the prospect of hosting a COP with the Pacific in the Asia Pacific. There hasn't been one there since 2007, and one of the reasons I'm here is to learn of that knowledge transfer from the lessons of Brazil and the role you've played, the role of the presidency and the bureaucracy in Brazil, and transferring that knowledge to Australia. We don't have the COP yet, but we have to act as if we do. If there's any friends from Turkey in the crowd, maybe we should have a drink afterwards and try and sort it out between us. With regards to the economics, it will be fairly and squarely, if it is in Australia, about economics and trade. You're talking about Australia is the third largest exporter of fossil fuels in the world, the second largest exporter of emissions in the world, into the most rapidly growing energy-hungry Asian markets in the world. So this will be largely a trade COP. We also have the most extensive renewable resources on the planet. So Australia has not a unique story, but a special story to tell, is one of the most fossil fuel dependent nations in the world, but with unprecedented opportunities to make a clean energy transition, not just to help Australia decarbonise, but as one of the few countries that can produce more renewable energy than it needs, to look at how to exchange clean energy into these energy-hungry, growing Asian markets to help them decarbonise. For countries like Korea and Japan, importing clean energy via hydrogen, direct renewable energy export, or further refining of critical minerals in Australia for export could play a critical role in those energy-hungry Asian markets to decarbonise themselves. So we see that the Australian COP will be largely about trade. Obviously, there's a really critical point too with the Pacific, and this will be the other dimension to an Australian COP. Pacific Island nations don't just face climate change as an issue of energy transition. They don't just face climate change as an issue of responding to climate crises. For these countries could cease to exist. I mean, you just have to think about that for a moment. Imagine if your country ceases to exist. We have a relationship with Tuvalu to be the first country that has a formal immigration relationship to receive these people as their country inundates. So you've got this real challenge of fossil fuel to renewable energy trade transfer, and you've got the existential crisis facing these countries. So we feel that it's a perfect time for an Asia-Pacific COP for these reasons.
We had yesterday Flora Vano, and she's a representative of Action Aid in Vanuatu at the Pacifics, and she filled our hearts with so much inspiration. But she also brought the reality that is not a future problem, it's really a daily emergency crisis, and they face disasters every day, every week. I was with her in an immersion, and she said, just this week that we are here in Italy, we had 7 catastrophes in my island. It's completely out of our perspective how the things are accelerating in the Pacifics. So I'm really glad that you brought all the context of what would be a COP in Australia. I will not say in which side I am. So John, friend, you, in our work also at the Future of Mining Coalition together, we are looking a lot about how climate and nature are even more being part of the same discussion. And then I will go to Fab as well, but I want to hear from you. what is the perspective that you think this COP is bringing for the discussion of climate and nature in the hard-to-abate sector?
Thank you, Flora, and good afternoon, everybody. Well done for staying around, hopefully not the graveyard shift yet. So thank you. John Mulligan, I'm Head of Sustainability Strategy and the Climate Change Lead at the World Gold Council. And Flora's already mentioned mining, and some of you may be surprised if you aren't familiar with the World Gold Council, of why an association that basically digs holes in the ground to extract value, what we have to say, or do we have an ability to contribute to what we might call positive action. So for those who aren't familiar, and to answer your question, there has been a gradual, or some might say fairly rapid, transition from understanding the value that's created by mining more generally in terms of production of minerals, production of value of the mineral that's produced, to this idea of wider impacts, to this idea of what is your responsibility, what is the value and purpose of that activity beyond merely producing the product and selling it. Now, the gold is actually quite significant because it is very significant to a lot of frontier and emerging economies. In many locations, it is the industrial player, or it is the source of foreign income, which underpins that economy. That's a big responsibility, but it's also a big opportunity. And what we have seen, and it's part of certainly my role and the organizations I represent, is an acknowledgement of that responsibility. The idea is, okay, if I'm mining in a fairly remote location, I'm not plugged into a grid, I can't depend upon the infrastructure provided by the local government in many cases, I have to do it myself. If I want to decarbonize, I have to actually take the action and decarbonize with some degree of independency. The positive aspect of that is in doing so, you can have a catalyzing effect. You can bring clean energy infrastructure to economies, communities, locations where it's not been accessible. And that increasingly has certainly happened, and happy to talk about many instances. But it's also then becomes a question of this broader issue of wide adaptation and resilience. And in the climate space, and you've just alluded to it, what is the lived experience of the climate? Now, we're not talking really about the mine. We are mining the resilience of the mine. We're talking about the resilience of the community, the neighboring community, and increasingly, and this is a kind of a fairly recent acceptance, I think, of responsibility, we're talking about ecosystems. So there is no point having a resilient industrial enterprise if you're situated in a vulnerable location with people who are also vulnerable and dependent on you or see you as competitive or a challenge. So you have to build positive systems. Those positive systems can have positive impacts, and increasingly that means understanding how you can decarbonize, how you can contribute to wider decarbonization, how you can build or contribute to adaptation and resilience for the local community, and then how you can build resilient ecosystems, because they're all related.
Yes. Thank you. Fabiola, please bring, I will not make big questions because we have so short time, but bring to us how Conexus is really working with social bioeconomy and what are the next steps after COP for this thematic that is being, I think, one of the pillars of COP in Amazon.
Thank you. First of all, we are stating in favor of social bioeconomy as a central climate solution. And I'm not speaking alone. I'm standing alongside with other 60 organizations from the Global South. So we catalyzed a declaration, a South-South declaration for social bioeconomy as a central climate solution and a pillar, a central pillar for the climate transition agenda. And this is very important to be said. No, like, firstly, it's not a social bioeconomy as a niche economy or a marginal economy and in opposition of a real economy. No, we are first of all stating, look, economy is always economy. If you put social and bio together, this is a political decision. So decide by really choose, by really bring people and the nature in the center of the economical decisions is the first statement that we are making together with all these organizations. Secondly is to say like it's finance, it's not only an issue of amount. We really need to increase, I think, from the millions to the trillions, no? Like Roadmap Baku Belém, this is the key challenge that we have as a deliverable of this COP to really get the trillions, no? But more than amount, what is important again, is who is accessing, how they are accessing, and who is managing the funds, no? So there's a lot of examples. We have less than 2% of the climate finance that really arrives to support indigenous local communities, indigenous peoples' actions. And if you look to the indigenous territories, they are 10 times more conserved than private areas. So it doesn't make any sense. This the most cost-effective way to protect, to deliver, mitigation through avoided deforestation and also restoration. Removals, but again, adaptation not only is like really supporting the guardians of the forest, so really support the communities. And I think thirdly is not only an issue of finance. Let's really put money to mitigation, adaptation, and also loss and damage, because the communities are those who are suffering more the effects of the big events or the climate events. But it's how to shift the economy. It's the transition economy, I think, is a key pillar of this COP. And this means that the carbon intensive, the hydric or the water intensive the cost needs to be internalized into the products and into the service. So the ecosystem services, it's not only a payment that needs to occur because we have a regulation or this is part of the game, like environmental and social quality costs, and it needs to be internalized, because what is happening now is that we are still basing our production model in degradation, in sometimes exploitation of jobs, sometimes. So how to change this, internalizing the costs of being more careful with social and environmental issues. So I think these are the three. We have call to action, very detailed. We can talk about this later, in where in the negotiations, where in the roadmap Baku Belém, where in the action agenda the social bioeconomy needs to be formalized, recognized, to pave the way for all of this that we are talking, but mainly really get access and governance and money, for those who are protecting the forests, who are making the adaptation from the ground as a survival mode of life.
Amazing. Imane, also looking to what Fabiola was saying in terms of real impact, when we talk about sustainable finance, we have this challenge of really what the investors are eager to do and what really generates impact and how this impact is measurable. So how in your role you convince and you bring data and you bring measurement to the decision making of a real sustainable finance and impact investment?
That's a very good question, and that's a question that I get. Mic drop there, Fabiola. So I get that question very often, and my answer is not necessarily what people like to hear, but it's nonetheless the truth. Investors are not politicians, they're not regulators, we're not here to legislate. If there is a law, if there is legislation, we're happy to follow it and we will implement it. We don't set the standards, we don't set the measurements at all. This is where you have the NGOs, the industry associations to do so. So unfortunately, it's not for us to be defining all of that, and it's not our role, and it shouldn't be. But we're happy, like we're part of the big ecosystem altogether, and we have a role to play But our role is not that. Our role is to provide the financing based on all of these frameworks and all of these legislations that are done in partnership with other things. What I can talk about is what are the obstacles of financing and why are we not getting the numbers that we need to be getting. That's my role, and this is what I kind of can talk about. And then for me, I would say, well, the first element is, as I was saying earlier, the public markets are, and I said like public, I defined what they are. They're completely out of this conversation. I know a lot of people are talking about the trillion gap. The label debt, just label debt on a yearly basis raises $1 trillion consistently for the past few years. What we are seeing is that there is a very big disconnect across all the ecosystem. You have the MDBs, you have the government, you have the NGOs, and nobody is talking to each other, and everybody are talking about different conversation, and everything gets drowned into the noise. But from our perspective, what we really need to see is that something there is packaged in a way that we are accessing it. But we need to stop asking investors, what's the legislation, what's all of that. For us, to give us some investable opportunities, some risks, because this is what we need to be doing. There needs to be an opportunity, and our role is to manage risk. And then we're going to be making it. And then for me, if I were to sum up what needs to happen, it's 3 things. The first one is we need to move away from, box-ticking exercise and do a deep dive analysis. That doesn't really happen about obstacles and opportunities. The second element is we need to talk numbers. My job is to look at numbers. I can't talk about everything else, and numbers are often not included in the conversation. And the third element is pragmatism and realism. I know that we all have a view about what should happen. I do too, but then that sometimes it needs to match the reality. And then in all of these conversations, pragmatism and realism should prevail. Not what people wanted to hear. I said that,
Yes,
but it's nonetheless the truth.
It's important to
It's
know
important.
the reality, because
Exactly.
we cannot make beautiful figures and talk about the beautiful finance system if we need reality to make the change and have the hard conversations. And looking to this, Gavan, and thinking this Belém COP31 road that we have in front of us, we are seeing that COP30 is embedding this ambition on bringing economy to the center of the discussions. And how you see that COP31 will create for finance, nature, and climate justice not just legacy, but a continuity of the discussion, like making this engine, of global transformation that stop to stop and move forward. Like we have always, I listen people say we have good cops and bad cops. We cannot have more bad cops. It's urgent that we keep evolving.
I think one of the key themes that I've seen at this COP is actually how to bring those strands together in a rapidly changing world. One of the biggest conversations that's happening about this COP is about the future of multilateralism itself. And what is the context for which this COP COPs are an embodiment of multilateralism. They reflect a multilateralist view of the world in what is increasingly becoming also a bilateral world. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but how do the COP architecture to take the various threads that you're talking about operate in this changing operating environment that we now find ourselves in? Do we maintain, and how do COPs change through that? How do they adapt? How do they modernise to be able to take these challenges in a world that's now, there's still a very strong desire to maintain multilateral arrangements and the way we strike global agreements, such as on climate change. But we're seeing also this increase in a set of bilateral relationships. And I talked about them just before when I talked about trade. How will Australia and Japan, how will Australia and Taiwan, how will Australia and Korea change its bilateral relationship from being a major trading exchange in fossil fuels to a major trading exchange in clean energy. And President Lula actually gave an excellent opening speech, and I encourage people to have a look at it, where he actually talked about this in the context of wanting this COP to be about how we address fossil fuels, knowing that even the International Energy Agency has been crystal clear now for years about the need to make this transition, but in this changing operating environment that we're now seeing ourselves operating within. I think that will be the key test of the success of the handover from a Brazilian COP to an Australian COP in this changing operating environment of this mix of multilateralism and bilateralism.
Thank you. So our time is over, and we have a so amazing keynotes to close this night. And I think John will forgive me because he will be with us at the reception. So John is hosting the reception together with Heineken as well this evening. So I want to close just with no words. Okay. I just want to say thank you. I'm really glad with this such a global stage to close, because this is what COP is about. It's an international gathering where we really bring different perspectives from different sectors. World Climate Foundation really intends to create this cross-sector collaboration conversation. So I think in this closing plenary we had exactly these different perspectives. I'm so honored to host you in Brazil, in my country, to be the lead of this organization in Brazil, and had so many partners. I'm so happy to see this plenary full on the end of the second day. So thank you very much for coming, for staying with us. And I'm eager to listen our three amazing keynotes. Thank you, Metzi.
But before we leave, I really, Flora, you don't go anywhere. This lady is phenomenal, and the Brazilian team. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Flora. Can we please give her a standing ovation? It's taken a year. A standing ovation. Yes, you're not going to cry. But Flora and your team, I mean, you delivered for us as an organization. This didn't start a few months ago. This started more than a year ago. And we all knew that they're going to deliver a phenomenal COP. I must say, I've done a few COPs thanks to the World Climate Foundation. And this is probably my best one, because for the first time I've gotten to really feel the culture, the essence, the food, the vibrancy of the country. And it's because of you, Flora. Congratulations, my dear. Thank you so much. And now, on that nice note, we are going to have our final set of closing keynotes by phenomenal partners, phenomenal human beings that are making a difference. It goes beyond the corporations that they are part of. They are human beings having a human experience and making a difference on this planet. So I would like to call upon Leslie Johnston from the Laudes Foundation, if she should come up to the stage and give us some closing